Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind. It's always such a welcome to be asked to speak here at MenUnited in Bath. It feels like coming back to your home ground. So, and it's just exciting. This is actually the third time I've spoken here, and it always seems to happen that I get this Christmas slot, as I refer to it, which feels really special. It feels like a great opportunity just to share some stuff in Christian fellowship with fellow brothers and men. And if you like, just give us some food for thought to take into this holiday period, which of course can be challenging and difficult, and certainly on the back of the year that we've had. It's been a remarkable year. And so I wanted to share with you some work on this idea of breakthrough. And I'm aware that when I say breakthrough, it can sound a bit phony. It can sound a bit like trainer speak, or the kind of thing that public speakers talk about. And so the challenge for me this morning is to really get you to expect to see breakthroughs in your lives. So that's what we're going to be working on. I've had the most amazing year. It's been astounding. God has used me in amazing ways. Some of you will know my testimony already. Grant introduced me as a lawyer, and I've worked for 12, 13 years within this field of divorce law. I became a Christian on Remembrance Sunday 6 years ago. And it was a fairly amazing situation. I'd been out to Romania with Paul Skelton and the Robin Hood Ministry just to broaden my horizons, to see what other people are having to live with and what challenges they're getting through. And I wasn't looking for God, and I came back to England and had all these questions churning around in my head. You know, how can this make sense? And what is it that I've seen? And what was the point of me going there? And so I went to church on a Sunday. Paul Skelton was there to welcome me in. And I've said this before. If we are inviting people into church to join us in worship and to encounter with God, wait for them on the outside. Wait for them on the outside and just take them with you over that threshold, because it's a really daunting step to step into the church. And Paul was there, and he received me, and I sat down on this pew, Remembrance Sunday. And some of you might remember this. The children in front of me were just drawing on pieces of paper on the pew in front of me. And they were doing those cartoon pictures that children draw, you know, war pictures, which felt a bit strange on Remembrance Sunday. But the kind of drawings which have sound effects. So the aeroplane's coming over and it's shooting down, and we draw the explosion and we make the sounds at the same time. It was the original multimedia years before the internet. And these children were doing that. And we kind of got to this second session of worship songs within this service. My first church service in years and years and years. And I can remember thinking that there are modern worship songs, Matt Redman, and I remember thinking these lyrics are awful. You know, you could see the rhymes coming 2 verses away, and they never failed to deliver. And I just realized, and I just challenged myself. I realized that I was being defensive, that I was putting up barriers, that I was being dismissive of what was going on and what I was a part of. And I just challenged myself to stop being cynical for a moment, just for a moment, and to think about these words. And it's the Matt Redman song, I'm sorry, Lord, for the things that I've made it, and it's all about you. And I just thought about that for a split second. And I was saved there and then. And I was back on the pew, and I was a wreck. I was an absolute wreck, and it just felt as if this warm wind had just blown through me and absolutely devastated my life, or at least the life that was there before. And in its place, there was this amazing sense of peace, an amazing sense of community, of family. The church that I went to, Holy Trinity Coombe Down, is a fairly large congregation, and there I was, a sobbing mess, amongst this 200, 300 congregation, almost all of whom were complete strangers to me. And yet, at that moment, I felt a real part of the family. And I knew that whatever happened to me over the coming years, that I couldn't fail. I couldn't fail. I couldn't fall. Whatever happened, if everything was taken away, if I howled up spectacularly, in the most spectacular fashion, I still couldn't fail. I had this sense that I would be upheld, almost for people of a certain generation, almost as if I was crowd surfing in a mosh pit. Yeah, that there were these people, these strong arms underneath me, underneath any of these people, should they fall as well, just holding us up. And at that moment, all of the kind of anxiety, I'd grown up a successful man, I was a lawyer, I was pleased with my work, with my career, with my family, I had one daughter at the time, so I was happy with all of that. But I did have this, what I call a vertigo about what if all of this fell away? And what if I just plummeted? And in that moment that I was saved, that was just blown away. And it was an amazing experience. But then the very next day, Monday, of course, I'm back at my desk. And I sit down and I think, oh crikey, I'm a divorce lawyer. How on earth do I reconcile being a divorce lawyer with having a faith? And I realized that this just wasn't going to add up. This wasn't going to work. And so I took some time, I spoke to some wise people. Don Latham was there, he had happened to come into my life at that time. And so I was able to speak to him and to others about how on earth do I reconcile this? How do I reconcile what I've always been doing with this new faith? And he gave me some real wisdom. He said, just wait, and it will become clear. And it did. And that was 6 years ago. And over that 6-year period, I've been, if you like, reshaping my life to get me out of divorce law. To get me out of divorce law. To be freed, if you like, from those shackles. And it's a tough place to be. I appreciate some of you will have gone through divorce. And it's tough work. It's tough to go through. And so I was praying, give me the wisdom, get me out of this life, this old life that I've had. And he's done that. To such an extent that a couple of years ago, I wrote a book on conflict resolution, and I've spoken about it here when we were back at the bar, something called conversational rifts. Just about how can we, both in the secular and as Christian brothers, how can we communicate better? How can we tame the tongue, as James challenges us to do? How can we bear with one another and build one another up, even when we're in those areas of disagreement? So that book, Conversational Rifts, came out a couple of years ago. There was a challenge at work, and I had to step down and become a consultant, so become, if you like, in a secular term, independent and self-reliant. And the very first day of my consultancy, I got an invitation to speak at a business gig, speaking to 700 people. Which was amazing. That was within hours of stepping out thinking, crikey, what am I going to do? Where am I going to get work from? My very first appointment in a cafe in Keynsham, can you do this work? Can you do your conflict resolution work in a way which is fairly upbeat, which is inspirational? I said, yeah, I think I can do that. I said, can you speak to 700 people? I said, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. And so that's the way that I've seen that's the way that I've seen God just working through and just being there with me at every step of the way. So that book, Conversational Rifts, is here, by the way, on your way out. There's about 15 copies. If you want a copy, please help yourself. If you think it will help you in your business, help yourself and take it. If you want to leave a tenner, please do. But the important thing is take the book. So that was 2 years ago. That's fed into other work, going into great organizations, getting the most amazing introductions. Excuse me. Which have got nothing to do with me. The kind of doors that are opening up this year have been unbelievable. I trained in a process called collaborative law, which is a form of mediation within divorce. And now that is the only kind of divorce law work that I do. Collaboration, kind of mediation. And the people who pretty much created collaborative law over in Minnesota in America have asked me to go in and give them 2 days training next year on what the future of collaborative law might look like. So this is like the originators of the movement, and now they're asking me, little old me, to come in and just share some words and some thoughts that might take them on into the next generation, the next iteration of collaborative law. And this is exciting stuff. And this is what I really want to share with you, man. This is what I really want to share with you. That when we trust and when we align what it is that we're doing with God's will, then amazing things happen. And month after month, we have men standing on this platform just sharing the adventures that God has taken them on. And this is good boys' own stuff. Yeah, so that's why I think it's just great to be able to share it with you, man. So these adventures this year, in the last 12 months, I've spoken in Washington, San Francisco, Boston, great places. I'd never been to America before and had no idea that I would get there, let alone get paid to go there. And these are the doors which swing wide open. So, I just hope that some of you will be able to enjoy some of that in your lives. But it isn't all about the great big stage. It isn't about the world travel. In all of our lives, we get breakthrough all the time. We get breakthrough all the time. We promised it in the Bible. Amazing things will happen. Yeah. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the doors will open. And we just need to trust into that and to lean into it. To lean into it, and then we will see breakthrough. And something else happens with these breakthroughs. We all lead. Any one of us could be standing on this platform. There's a chilling thought for you. Any one of us could be standing on this platform talking about the breakthroughs in our lives. But something happens. Something happens. These breakthroughs that we experience, where God is really working and doing amazing things in our lives so that we can touch other people, our families, our communities, and our workplaces. These breakthroughs happen, but we lose sight of them. We lose sight of the breakthroughs in our own lives. And some of you will be here saying, breakthroughs never happen. Never have them. But we do. And in some of the training that I do, I've tried this as a kind of icebreaker experiment. And I've said to people, we're going for some big progress today. Yeah, we're going for breakthroughs. And I want you all to believe that breakthroughs happen. So think about that. Take 5 minutes and think of breakthroughs that you've already seen in your life. And we get lots of blank faces. And I did this once at an event, and there was one man in particular who just couldn't think of a breakthrough in his life. Really struggling. And I thought, well, this is a good test. This is a good test. This will test whether this works or not. And so I was talking to him. I said, so breakthroughs, something that you can do now that once you couldn't do? And he said, no, can't think of anything. Can't think of anything. So I said, well, okay. I said, have you got children? He said, no. I thought, okay. I said, sports. Do you play sports? He said, yeah, I play sports. Okay, what sport do you play? What was it? Badminton. Badminton he plays. Okay, so I said, any stories you can tell me about badminton, any, big wins, anything like that, any achievements? I said, well, I used to play for England. And it was like, what? You play for England, badminton, and you're telling me you haven't experienced breakthrough in your life? I said, how did it happen? He said, I was playing at county level, and I kind of got a tap on the shoulder from someone. They asked if I'd be interested in playing for England. And you don't think that's a breakthrough? I said, the very first point that you serve in badminton for your country, the very first point you win, is that not a breakthrough? And he looked at me and said, do you know what, I suppose it is actually. And, you could see that he kind of like grew a couple of inches and such like. And this is the point, that in all of our lives, we have these stories, we have these incidents. And do you know what that man was saying? He said, I thought that was just life. I thought that was just life. And this is what happens, that there's that line, isn't there, about the enemy comes to steal and lie and rob. And I think that's what happens, that we have these great incidents in our lives that really we can be truly grateful for if only we knew that they were happening. And if only we remembered that they were happening, instead of letting this just life kind of encroach back and just take these things away again. It's like we should have a bookcase up here. A bookcase, and on this bookcase we should put all of our breakthroughs when they happen. Yeah? So when something really good happens, when something really difficult, when we get through those difficult times in our lives, we ought to say, that's it. That's a breakthrough right there. And we ought to put it on the bookcase. And then every time we're feeling challenged, we can just turn around in our office or in our lounge, and we can just look at the collection of breakthroughs that we've already seen in our lives. And just remind ourselves that this stuff really works. This stuff really works. And what's more, we've got promise of more and more and more of it through the Bible, through His Word. I've written down a few notes, which I don't normally do. And the reason that I've done that is because the words which are mine doesn't really matter if I get them jumbled up and in the wrong order and such like. Sounds like the Morecambe and Wise sketch. But the Bible, it's about time that I grew up and gave it a bit more respect and get those words right. So I've just got a couple of passages. The one that we've already shared, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. That's a promise. it isn't just a suggestion, it's a promise. And it works. And there will be other men, other brothers in this room who will be able to tell you about experiences that they've already had. The working in the training field is sometimes uncomfortable. Nowhere near as uncomfortable as divorce, but uncomfortable all the same, because there's a lot of weird stuff out there. There's a lot of, I have a particular concern about neuro-linguistic programming. I'll get in all kinds of trouble now for saying that. But you know, there's a lot of stuff which gets to be and feel quite culty. There's a situation actually, I'm in a men's group, and we meet once a month. Men's group, if you're not in a men's fellowship group, small group, find one. Create one this morning. They are so valuable, they really are, and I'm going to be touching on those incidents a few times. And there's one brother who is in this group who wasn't a Christian at the time when I became a Christian. And he and I used to meet regularly for breakfast, and he was into some of this personal development stuff. And I can remember having breakfast once, and he said to me, you know, Neil, I've got to learn to trust the universe and ask the universe for what I need. And I'd had a bit of a gutful of this kind of talk, and I said, I nearly blurted out his name. And I said, you know, this isn't new. This isn't, you know, how much are you paying for this? There's, you know, this is all there, and it's in the Bible. And I was thinking about this passage, ask and it shall be given. And my Bible knowledge then was even worse than it is now, which is hard to believe. But and you know, I said, you know, this is in the Bible. Ask and it shall be given. I knew that much. And I said, look, I'll find the passage, I'll find the chapter and verse when I get back to my office, and I'll send it through to you. And that morning I went back to my office, and I just went onto BibleGateway.com, which is a great Bible resource, and I just searched, you know, ask and it shall be given. That's a lie, sorry. I booted up to Bible Gateway, and the passage of the day was ask and it shall be given. The passage of the day. So then I was able to email my friend and colleague and business contact, and say, here it is. Here is that passage, and it's the passage of the day today. And you can call that coincidence. It's a pretty remarkable coincidence, if so. You can call it serendipity. You can call it whatever you want. But it's the passage, and there's a chapter and verse, and I promised that I would find it, and there it is. That man is now a Christian and doing amazing things, walking alongside God. Not because of me, but because of him. And this is one of the things I think about when we're meeting with brothers and men who don't yet believe. You know, it isn't up to us to convert them. It isn't up to us to get them to sign on the dotted line there and then. And we can just toss out these seeds. Yeah, and they kind of like, they get in the way, and they become an irritation. They scratch them, and then, you know, they kind of flower into full bloom. So there is a breakthrough. How did I get onto that? I was going through the passages, wasn't I? Bear with me. Yeah, so this point about breakthroughs and believing that they happen. What I want you to do, gentlemen, is to take a couple of minutes on your tables and just think back. Just think back. Think about something in your lives which you can do now, which once you couldn't do before. And let's just reclaim those breakthroughs that we've already had in our lives, those real exciting high points in our lives where we've overcome a challenge. Yeah, where we've overcome, where we've achieved something, where we've managed to do something that we've been trying to do for a long time. And let's just reclaim those, and we can start building our bookcase right here. So how about 3 minutes, just talking in our groups, on our tables, and think about something in your life. I'll come round, so if anyone's really struggling, I'll come and poke you a bit and challenge you a bit more. 3 minutes, let's go. Okay, so has every table got at least one example of a breakthrough situation? I love this exercise because it's really good for, you know, just for getting the conversation, and we're really able to lean into it and share these stories, and that's really good. I've heard a couple of stories while I've just been out there and around and about. People who have overcome things, or are in that process of overcoming, that which they think they would not be able to. And just hearing one of the stories was about how were you able to do it, by leaning on God, by really trusting Him. Another gentleman was saying about his fear of computers, and just this mindset, this innate mindset that couldn't do it, wouldn't be able to do it, and just this belief, this self-belief, and he's broken through that, and it's really charming because I said, well, what was the breakthrough moment for you? And he said, seeing my children do it. Seeing my children do it. Which reminds me of a story about how my wife came to know Christ and Jesus. In that we were driving past a church at a time when my daughter was very young, just starting to speak. And we drove past a church, and my daughter pointed at the church and said, church. And my wife was, quite surprised that, she knew the word, and, oh, yeah, church, and, who goes to church? Daddy. Daddy goes to church, of course. Okay, and what does Daddy do at church? La la, that's what we do, isn't it? We sing at church, we go la la. And my wife said to my daughter, and does Mummy go to church? And my daughter said, no. And I think there's just something in that, isn't it? That sometimes, we look at children, something about the simplicity of children. Through the mouths of babes and all of that stuff. So anyway, I digress. So these breakthroughs, we have these breakthroughs in our lives already, and let's keep hold of them. Let's keep hold of them. Let's really celebrate them, because if we don't, then that's life will just come in and steal them away, and we kind of like revert back. We lose that excitement. We lose the saltiness of our lives and what we've got to offer people. And instead, we become drab once again. So we have to guard against that. Breakthroughs, we've already got breakthroughs, and we can lean into Him. We have this promise of breakthroughs, and we can really lean into that. And we can and we should expect more breakthroughs in our lives. If we're going to become everything that is in store for us, then we need to be bold enough to step into those breakthroughs. Now, when I'm talking in this context, it's quite easy for me to talk about the Bible and His Word, and we've got some more bits that we'll share on that in a moment. When I'm doing this in the secular world, it's a bit different, as you can imagine. Yeah, it's a bit different if I'm going into an organisation. And so I was challenged, how can we talk about breakthrough in a way which is secular? And I came up with something. It's silly nonsense, but I came up with something called the breakthrough equation. Do you want to know the breakthrough equation? Yeah, it's silly nonsense, so don't put too much stock into this. The breakthrough equation goes something like this. It's 4x times E plus S1 over S2 equals BT. You got that? You can watch it back on a video. Let's break that down. 4x, and this kind of comes from my conflict work took me into the area of change management. Whenever organizations are going through change, then they have an awful lot of conflict. And this is like some of the thinking from change management. And it says that the 4x is 4 attitudes. And the attitudes are the realization that you have to do something to change. And how many of us here feel that sense that something's got to give, something's got to change? The second one is that we can do something to change. And this is why in a secular setting, why I go back previous breakthroughs and such like. Here, we know that we can do something about change. We know that we can get through change because the Bible tells us so. We have to, we can, we want to. Yeah, so we have to choose to go through a change process. The transformation, the refiner's fire, as we read about in the Bible, and man, does that sting sometimes. We have to choose to go into that. Ask, seek, and knock. Yeah, we have to do that. We have to choose to do that. And when we've got those things, the realization that something's got to give, that something's got to change, the realization that, we can do something because we've already gone through change before, because we've got Him. The desire to see change, to see breakthroughs in our lives for our communities, for our organizations and our families. When we've got those 3 attitudes, then the 4th attitude kind of slots into place automatically. And the 4th attitude is, I will. Do you know what? I will do something about it. And that's when we step out. I'll give you an example. I told you about the men's group I was in, and I told you about how valuable that was to me. And there was I turned up at this men's group probably about 6-7 months ago. And the guy who runs it is always, he's a great support. He's a great brother. And he gave me a big hug and he said, Neil, so glad you could make it. Neil, we have to build in you carefully. This discipling thing, we have to build in you carefully. And when he said that, I had 2 thoughts. I thought, wow, that sounds great. Oh, I'll have some of that, please. And then I had a thought, oh, crikey, there is so much darkness in me. There is so much within me that I'm ashamed of. And And so I sat through the evening, and I was really enjoying and leaning into the teaching, and we had prayer at the end, and the man who leads this group just said, I just feel there's something with us in the room now, and it's like those big finger pointing. Has anyone had that? It's you. It's your time. It's your time to do something, to say something, to fill in the gap. And that was me. And I was mindful of these words. We need to build in you. We need to build in you carefully. And I was mindful of what was within me, and I just felt this compulsion. Remember that attitude? I will do something. I said, look, brothers, there's something that you need to know. I feel as if I'm not the person you think I am. I struggle with pornography. I struggle with pornography, as many men do, and it's not just men of a certain age. It's all men. And this is within me, and it feels like it's really getting in the way. And pornography is this has been going on for years, and it's something that I've tried to shun and turn away from. And I've been really ashamed of it. And when we're ashamed of things, we kind of feel that it's for us to deal with. And even as Christians, we kid ourselves that it's for us and him to deal with, just between us. Yeah? It's our little secret, God. And that's not the way he works. It's not the way he works. And so, I kind of stepped out into this space of saying, look, this is what's going on inside me, and you're saying that you want to build in me, and I just feel there's no room. And I don't know what I was expecting. I was worried about condemnation, acute embarrassment. I was worried about all of those things, about being shunned. And instead, grace came down, bam, in that moment. Grace came down, and there's another guy in the group who just stood up and he's a big bear of a man, just gave me this huge embrace. And he just said, we live every day under God's grace. Now, for those of us who aren't familiar with that kind of language, what I understand that to mean is that, we do sin. There are those things within us that we are ashamed of, and that by leaning into him and taking that gift of grace, which is more than forgiveness, it's more than mercy. It is saying, I am not worthy. It's tempting to go into Bill and Ted, isn't it, or Wayne's World. But, I am not worthy, and yet at the same time, I am able to access and receive that grace from our Father God. And since that time, which was 6 or 7 months ago, I haven't gone back to pornography. And every day I just have that mind. We live under God's grace. And there have been temptations, and I've been able to come away from them through praying, through talking, through continuing to share this. And I think there's a lesson within that. Sometimes the breakthrough is that determination, do you know what, I will do something about it. And sometimes that will means recognizing what is holding us back. Do you remember I gave you that equation, the 4x times E? The E is the effort, and believe me, it is an effort. It's an effort to keep going. It's an effort to keep going. Those of us who've got businesses here in the market that we are in, it's tough to keep going sometimes, and yet we have to. So there's the effort. What do I need to learn? What do I need to access to be able to get to this breakthrough? So there's the effort. There's the S1 and S2. S1 are the setbacks. How are we going to manage the setbacks? Where did I put my notes? Yeah, so the setbacks. More of the boys' own stuff. This is better than Tintin, believe me. I love this. 2 Corinthians 10, 3, 6. Some of us will immediately know what I'm talking about. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. It's pretty exciting stuff. It's pretty exciting stuff. Hergé couldn't have written better. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. And I'm thinking about the gentleman who kindly shared with me earlier about the computer, and just that mindset. Yeah, our mindsets sometimes are strongholds. The shame that we might feel about something, whether it's drinking, drugs, pornography, gambling, just this sense that some of us can fall into of being a failure. These are strongholds within us. And yet we've got weapons which are not of this world. And we can use them to smash those strongholds. And as we smash those strongholds which are holding us back and which set us back time and time and time again from the breakthroughs, from the changes that we long to see in our lives so we can do His will, as we smash those strongholds, then those doors are flung wide open. So breakthroughs really happen. They happen because we've seen them already in our lives. They happen because we're promised. And they happen because we can see them. We can talk now about what are the breakthroughs that we yet long to see. Yeah? If we are here, what needs to change between here and over here, or even at the back of the room? What needs to change, if you like? Some of you might be thinking, do you know what, I've got a story that I'd like to share. And I just wonder, what would need to change for your breakthrough? To be able to go up to Don and say, look, you know, Don, I think I've got a message that I'd like to share with the people here at MenUnited. So what would need to change in that sense? What are those strongholds within us that are holding us back? Where are we lacking the trust and the conviction to really lean in? Now, I said earlier, didn't I, about men's groups, small bands of brothers. They're so valuable to me. And I would recommend any of you find one of those. The thing that it took for me to have that breakthrough was to speak out. And in the moment that I spoke out, the shame disappeared. It was no longer like a dark cancer inside me. And instead it was out there. And the grace that I received, that embrace in that physical sense of grace was a beautiful thing. And the spiritual sense of grace as well. And just the release. I can remember the guy who led the group said, when I'd spoken this out about the pornography, he said, your wife knows, of course she knows. And at that moment I thought, oh crikey, now I'm really in trouble. And I don't know if she did or she didn't. But now that it's being dealt with, and now that it's under grace, my wife sees a difference. I see a difference in the way that I'm able to relate to her. So if you like, that's the payback. That's what's on the other side of breakthrough. And if I'm able to be more loving towards my wife and to my family, then that is God's will. So breakthroughs, gentlemen, I would encourage you strongly, think about if there is a promise of breakthrough for you, and there is, what might that breakthrough be? If you were seeking for a breakthrough, what might it be? And when you've got that, share it. Because it's not between you and God, it's about fellowship. It's about Christian men coming together. There's that great bit, isn't there, within Hebrews. Hebrews 10, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Not to stop meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. And I think that's partly why we come here together in MenUnited, to encourage one another. And within that encouragement, within that fellowship, we've got the safety, we've got the trust, we've got the love and grace of our brothers and of our Father to really speak out the challenges that we're facing. It's going to be a tough year ahead. And we need to keep meeting, both within this group as MenUnited and in our smaller groups as well. So seek out small groups within your workplace. Are there other Christians there that you can meet with and that you can pray with? Again, that can feel a bit weird. It's another step that I've taken, and there's a Christian in my workplace, and I approached him and said, I think we should be meeting and praying for our organisation, and we do now. And again, having said it and having just come out and got on with it, it's easy. Yeah, the barriers that we put up that we think are going to happen just fall away. So find these groups, find them in your workplace, in your organisation, find them in your community. If you're in a church, seek out some brothers who you trust, who you are able to confide in, and keep on meeting together to encourage one another. And my hunch is then that if we are able to identify these breakthroughs, and if we're able to truly believe the promise that is in the Bible, that you will see those breakthroughs in your lives. So that's what I'm saying about expecting to see breakthrough. Gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with that. I want to wish you all an amazing Christmas and a stunning 2012. There are huge adventures ahead for all of us. Lean into it and go for it. Thank you very much.